hello. Welcome to another Epic Understanding episode. And today we have again our host, Coach Erica. Hello, Erica. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm so excited to be here bringing you a deep investigation into the mind of Kenyon Glover today.
Uh, yeah, we have an amazing guest today also. Tony, how are you?
I'm doing phenomenal, Marco, as always. It is a pleasure to grace the platform and be alongside my host, Coach Love. So,
Perfect.
ready to get into this mind of Kenyon and let him shed some light on peace and love.
Perfect. And Kenyon, welcome to Portugal.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm truly honored to be a part of this broadcast. So I'm excited, man. Let's get it going.
So let's start the ball rolling. It's up to you, Erica. Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you. First, I want to welcome all the guests and thank you for tuning in. We have Kenyon Glover here. He's really a Renaissance man. He's a actor, a NBA player, author, a martial artist. He is fantastic. He has just done amazing things with his life. But you know what my first question is to him, guys? What were you like as a little boy?
Well, you know what? I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't a bad kid at all. I was one of those kids that was very curious. So I was always getting into things that I shouldn't have been getting into because of my curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat. But I was always just wanting to know how things work and why things work and why this and why that. So I was very inquisitive. But I was not like a bad kid, I was just very active. I just wanted to always be involved in different things and always being creative. And I think that's where I got my creative mindset to this day. I've always been a person that wants to create. I would go outside and be outside all day, seeing what I could create to make fun, to be fun, to, for my brothers and sisters to have fun and us all get creative and figure out, okay, what can we create? What can we do to, keep our parents off our butts, so that's pretty much how I was as a kid. And I was always into martial arts. I was always into basketball. So whenever I wasn't playing basketball or doing martial arts, it was always me being creative somewhere, figuring out what I can do to help change the world, help stand out and be different.
All right. So I love that. You know what? You were interested in changing the world, even as a young man. So that tells me that your EQ was very high, even when you were young.
Yeah, I would say so. Because of that inquisitive mindset I had and my curiosity to always want to see how, I could be different. Like I said, I didn't want to fit in with the regular crowd and do the same thing everybody else was doing. I just wanted to stand out and be different. It was always for me figuring out how to do that, and that was part of, I guess, my uniqueness, I guess you can say.
Absolutely. And so for the record, family, we're exploring EQ, IQ, AQ, and SQ with Kenyon Glover. So you'll hear me bring up those particular ideas throughout the context of our conversation, because sometimes we neglect EQ and SQ. And so we want to just look at his story and see how those fit in. So at about 6 or 7 years old, you started to dream about the NBA and work on that. Where did that dream come from?
Well, you know what? I found myself sitting down watching Michael Jordan, my stepdad at that time. He was a big basketball fan. He was a big Michael Jordan fan. So every time the Bulls played, we would just sit down and watch the games. And all he would do is just talk about how good Michael Jordan was and how special and gifted he was. So me hearing that, I was like, you know what? I want to be gifted and talented like that. I want people to talk about me in that light. So that is what pretty much drew me into beginning to like basketball. And from that moment on, I started to watch Michael Jordan, study his highlights, study his films, go outside and mimic his moves. And that's all I did pretty much all day, every time I got a chance to play ball, that was all I wanted to do, was go outside and practice Michael Jordan moves and see what I can do, to elevate myself in the game of basketball and learning the game of basketball and learning how to, improve my skills and work on my game and get better each and every day. So that's how I learned to love the game of basketball. That's what drew me in. My stepdad, pretty much.
Wow. You know what just occurred to me just listening to you tell that story? Is there a little guy inside of you still that is always looking to impress your stepdad?
Not really, to be
Not
honest.
really?
Not really, because my stepdad and I grew apart as soon as I left
Right.
home and went, to college and went off into my own life. We kind of grew apart, and him and my mom kind of separated with their own ways. So
Oh, wow.
we don't really have that relationship anymore. I mean, even with my dad, I don't really try to even impress my dad. I want him to be proud of me,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I don't live my life to impress him, I wouldn't say.
So basically, you grew out of that, but that's where your love started. Is that what happened?
Exactly. Yeah, that's how the love of basketball began.
I got it. So, do you still cultivate strong relationships with young men and mentoring and things of that nature?
I find that to be a very, very interesting part of my life because I don't have kids myself, and the way I was raised, my stepdad did love us. He always, showed his love and discipline and all these other things toward us. And as I got older and as I saw the need that especially little boys were in need of, especially, with a lot of lack of fathers being in the homes, I took it upon myself to want to take on that role model responsibility to a lot of kids that were, like I said, missing maybe fathers or missing someone to look up to as far as a male role model. So it's just like each and every day I grow more and more, seeing that as my purpose, of being that positive role model that these little boys can look up to. And that's what fuels me to keep doing what I'm doing and keep getting better as a person, because I want them to look at me as like, wow, this dude Kenyon, he's really serious, about what he's doing. He's really passionate about giving back. He's really passionate about inspiring and motivating the younger generation, in a positive way, because we are missing so many, I feel like, positive role models, that's around in our society today. So I'm just trying to kill that nonsense that there's no more positive male role models. There are some out there that they just not in the limelight, so to speak. So that's my whole motivation.
Absolutely. And you want to know what? I really almost believe that just needs to be a part of how we operate amongst one another, that we lift one another up. I was teasing you and Tony backstage because of y'all's bromance. Absolutely. Tony, unmute yourself because I want you to talk about how I'm going to call it iron sharpens iron, and how you guys, you and Kenyon, have just created positive energy of growth and mentorship back and forth between one another. How has that worked?
Well, as you can see, he's here on the show, and he's got this book release, and I've been watching him on news interviews. So it's working out wonderful on both ends, because for me, it makes me, as kind of like you say, a proud papa, right? To just see people pay it forward, right? But Kenyon and I met some years ago. I call it many, many moons ago, since I'm over the 40 club, right?
Oh, wow.
But it was definitely Kenyon reached out to me, and that's always a good sign when you're looking for mentorship, and I'll be honest, I don't just go out and seek people just to say, hey, I'm going to mentor A, B, C, and D. Now, if there's a need, then I'm definitely there in that community or with those particular set of people, depending on the pace. But the way a real mentorship really works, that a lot of people don't know, it's up to the mentee to launch that type of relationship or to do the reaching out, and because it shows how invested in themselves that they are. and we just began to talk. And I think the first thing that we came to grips with or terms with, that we both were from Louisiana. And we were like, oh, okay. So, hey, we have someone else here from Louisiana. And you know how when you're from a really, really small town and you mention it, and only people from that particular state would know where it is.
Okay.
Then, so it started out like that. So I mentioned Monroe, and I mentioned Tallulah and Delhi and all of these different places. And it was just phenomenal. We struck up a friendship first. Is
Okay.
what it was. So we started talking about different things. Just, hey, where did he want to go with direction in his life? How could I be of assistance? And it just started off with, at the time, I didn't have, my bandwidth wasn't so restrained. So we would start off with like weekly calls. We would talk about, hey, what's your business adventure? Because he's a serial entrepreneur like myself, right? So we wanted to talk about all aspects of life. But one thing we definitely couldn't take away from was the personal pieces to it. Talking about growing up in Louisiana as a Black man, talking about what adversities we face, talking about what mistakes that we made in life if we had to go back and change it. And from there on, we even became business partners, and we invested in each other, emotionally, spiritually. There's not a time that, if Kenyon came across my mind, I would send him a text, hey, how's it going? And how you just have that connection, that something may be a little bit off kilter, and he would be like, man, just in time, but A, B, C, and D. And then it would be the same for me, because he would send me a text, hey, how's it going, T? Just wanted to check on you and see how it's going. I had the opportunity to share the stage with him some years ago in Las Vegas when he hosted a show. He's a phenomenal host, by the way, just so you guys know.
Okay.
He is a phenomenal host. So we got to share the stage there, got to meet some amazing people there, and talk about our journey just as we did there. And he introduced me to his wife. So, I was like, oh, I must be something special, right? Because like, hey, and, and in a room full of people, he goes, and, I want to give this up to my mentor, and that made me feel good, knowing that the things that I've invested in and the time, that it wasn't going to waste. So, from there, we've kept constant contact. Me, I've moved all around the U.S. in the last 5 years, and we've never lost touch. We've never lost the number, dropped the number. We can call each other and say, hey, what do you have going on? How can I support you? How can I pray for you, right?
Yeah.
And when I saw him release that book, like, you would have thought it was my own book releasing, right? So, long story short, that's kind of how the relationship was cultivated, and that's just how it's going. And I'm excited about the future of where it's going to be, because he's doing so many amazing things out there in the community. And not only that, and I'll cut it off, but just the fact that I know his story, and I know how powerful it is, and how it made me change something in my life based on what his story was, what his storyline was. And the fact that he can make himself vulnerable enough to share this personal journey with the world is more than anything you could ever ask for.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Just let me interrupt, because Tony, you can't talk about a small place where you don't live in Portugal, please.
I forgot about that. That was hilarious. Yeah, I remember you telling us, Marco. It has what, roughly? I'm just going to make this up. 17 million people, or you want to let the audience know how many?
10 million people, my friend.
10 million
10
people.
million people.
10 million people.
The village where I live, it's around 1,000 people.
Wow.
Wow.
It's almost, and you're about to ask on which place they live.
What's the name of your village, Marco?
Well, I don't think I will pay something to you if you can spell it properly. Mujães.
Oh, okay.
You're
Moving
welcome.
on.
That sounds, you know what? That sounds like a spice in the gumbo that Kenya and Tony's going to send me.
Yeah, that's about right. That's about right. What do you say? Mujan? Mujan?
Almost. Mujães.
Moonshine. Okay.
Moonshine.
You're almost there. Yes,
Moonshine.
yes.
I like
Sounds
You
like
learn. You
martial
learn
arts
this.
as well. Look, Eric, it sounds like martial arts as well. So that's why he was able
Yes.
to
Right, right, right.
There you go. Hey, Kenyon, when you do one of your moves, you just hey, that was my Moonshine move.
That was about moonshine. Right. I'm about to use that. I'm about to use
So
that.
good.
You guys, because he's a black belt. You're a black belt in martial arts, right?
Yeah, I'm a black belt in 3 different styles of martial arts. Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay. Bye bye.
Okay, so if you're around, I am fully protected. I'm fully protected.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you're in good hands around me. Absolutely.
All right, you're gonna handle it and get it done. All right, girls, don't worry because Kenyon's around.
Moonshine.
Bujan, he's gonna get the Bujan move. There we go. Okay, so Kenya, I have another question. It's about your NBA career. Jerry Seinfeld, he makes this comment. He has a little story he tells about marriage, right? And he said, going to and getting to the marriage is like going up a roller coaster. Okay, click, 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 and then you're at the top. And then all of a sudden you're married. And then, I mean, you're just going really fast all the way through the turbulence.
Yeah.
And when I've listened to your story, that's how the NBA was. You worked very hard, and it was your dream to get to the NBA.
Yeah.
You get there and you're playing, you know, and you are rocking and rolling. I mean, you're 6'4", but you're elbowing with people who are 6 feet, 7 feet tall. I mean, you got it going on handling your business. But then you have a knee injury. And it's heartbreaking. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, when you have worked so hard to get to the level that you have dreamed of getting to, you put all your blood, sweat, and tears into, you know, your craft, and you ultimately get there, and you could say, "Wow, I made it. All my hard work paid off. I made it. Like I'm in the big leagues now." And to get to that point, it was the most, you know, exhilarating feeling that you could ever feel. But then to hear that news, you know, to sit in that doctor's office and for him to come and tell you, you know, unfortunately, Mr. Glover, I have to inform you that you can no longer play basketball anymore. Your career is done. And in that moment, you just literally want to die. I literally wanted to die in that very moment when he was telling me that. Because I'm like, are you telling me I can no longer play the sport I love anymore, ever? Like nothing can be done, nothing, no surgery, no special whatever, no special pills or nothing you can give me. And you know, I'm infuriated at this point. I'm devastated. And to hear that news, it broke me down to the point where, like I said, I just didn't want to live. I couldn't deal with the pain and hurt of having to accept that. I didn't want to accept it. I just didn't. And for me to, I tried to move forward and accept it, but like I said, the pain was so devastating that I just couldn't get my mind off of thinking that I can no longer do this anymore. Like I failed. I felt like a failure. Even though I made it, I still felt like I failed. And I tried to commit suicide. I attempted suicide on my life just because I could not deal with the devastation of daily pounding of the enemy telling me that you need to kill yourself because life is not worth living anymore. You know, so, and just dealing with that every single day, 24 hours a day. I'm talking about not sleeping, even though I took sleeping pills to try to help me go to sleep, or seeking therapy, and nothing was helping. So that was a point in my life. I was just trying to check out.
Mm-hmm. So here you are. You had a um, a high AQ and adaptability quotient. Okay, you were you were emotionally in tune because you had gone through all these different relationships in different places, and you had really grown. Okay, you had a high IQ. You have a bachelor's degree, and so you're certainly very intelligent. But you found yourself where I call the rubber meets the road, where you are alone with yourself.
Yes.
Achievement is not there. Your friends can't be there, and your mom and your dad and who you had created yourself to be, your persona, is not there any longer. You are alone with yourself. So, what kept you from committing suicide?
Well, I actually attempted suicide. I pointed a gun to my head and I pulled the trigger twice.
Hmm.
So it was really nothing that God spared my life. God kept me here. God is the reason I'm here, because, like I said, I pointed a gun to my head and pulled the trigger twice, and the gun jammed both times.
Wow.
And I've told the story quite a few times. And the third time I went outside, and I knew the gun worked, but the gun was a brand new gun. So I took the gun outside and I shot the gun in the air for the third time, and the gun just fired just fine. So if you don't have an awakening at that very moment to know that God is real, that was my awakening moment. That, okay, God is real. God just spared my life. So it's obvious that there's a higher purpose for me. There's another calling on my life other than basketball. Obviously, basketball must not have been my calling. So there must be a reason that God is keeping me here, and He doesn't want me to kill myself or take myself out. So that was my awakening moment. I mean, I actually tried to go through the act of suicide, but
Okay.
it didn't happen. God said, nope, it's not your time yet.
And so that's when you went on a spiritual journey, because you had to develop more. You had to start developing your spiritual intelligence to crack through these guidelines and this thought process of success. Because Kenyon, you are successful, and you've been successful for a long time. First off, you are just blessed. I mean, you're 6'4", and you have a gorgeous face. Your haircut is tight, your smile is blinging, and you have just been one whose life has been gifted with goodness. Okay, so there's a lot of success in your life, but that is not enough.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like, well, what I've learned over the course of my years since the attempted suicide, I've learned that through all of this, it doesn't matter how much success you have, how much money you have, how much fame you have. If you're not connected to God in some way, if you're not connected to the higher power, if you're not connected to your creator, you're going to have a feeling of emptiness. You're going to still have a void and unfulfillment in your life. And people always ask me, well, why does they get so famous and have all the money in the world, but they still be so depressed and they're so sad and feeling lonely and this and that? I'm like, well, most of the time these people are unfulfilled because they're not connected to God. They don't want to have any relationship with God, no connection to God whatsoever. So your soul is yearning for that connection. If you don't feel that soul, that connection with connecting to God, then you're going to continue to feel unfulfilled. You're going to continue to feel a void and sad and lonely. Doesn't matter how famous you get, how much money you get, your soul is going to feel empty if you're not connected to the higher power. So, and I had to learn that, as I begin to, like you just said, get success, and different things started happening to me after the NBA, different things as far as acting and modeling and being an author and selling books and doing all these different things. There was still a void in my life just because my soul was still empty. My soul was still lost. you know, and I'm feeling just totally unhappy, you know, and I'm doing well in my life and doing all these different things, but there's still that void and that emptiness that I'm feeling. And it's the worst feeling to have, to know that you're on top of the world as far as everything else goes, but your soul is yearning, your soul is starving, you know, just because you're not connected to the higher power, the higher source, which is God.
Absolutely. And it's the type of connection that religion can't give it to you. Only a relationship with your creator
Right.
can give you that. Now, you write about this phenomena in your journey in your book. Can you hold your book up for the audience?
Hey.
Yes, yes. That is fabulous. It is awesome. So it is definitely a rebirth. Do me a favor, let us, audience, let us in on just a passage out of your book that you want to share.
Well, actually, I wanted to share two passages real quick.
Okay.
It'll be very quick. So it's out of chapter 5.
Okay.
The title of chapter 5 is The Awakening. So it says it's the opening paragraph of the chapter. It says, there was still many things within me that needed convicting from God that had not been quite resolved. I had internal issues that needed to be healed and set free. They were issues I felt were truly hindering me from giving myself completely back over to the Lord. The flesh is very weak. If you're not fully committed to overcoming fleshly desires, the flesh will absolutely consume you and fight against what the Spirit of God is trying to do within you. The Spirit seeks to change, mold, shape, and transform you into what God ordained you to be. Now, Satan wants to destroy you. Satan wants to manipulate you. Satan wants to control you in every aspect of your existence. He is constantly fighting against God to destroy and control his people. Spiritual warfare is very real. If you're not aware of it and refuse to control your spirit and soul, you are simply heading down a destructive path. And the next passage from chapter, I think it's 3, kind of goes hand in hand with what I just said. I honestly believe walking by the Spirit requires an intentional focus. Lifestyle changes are a result of focus and a lot of practice. In the Bible, James 1, verse 25 says, one who looks intently and puts it into effect will be blessed. It is one thing to define an experience and another thing to walk in it. And to walk in it, you must focus on it and intentionally practice it until it becomes a natural, instinctive part of your life. This isn't something that will happen overnight, in a couple weeks or even a month's time. This is a lifestyle that has to be practiced every single day. It may take years for God to get you to where you need to be, which is living as a disciple of Jesus. Being patient will be a vital part of walking by the Spirit.
Oh, wow. That is so just beautiful. It is, as you read the words, it just washed over my being and my heart. It is so touching. It is so touching. The name of your book is The Rebirth and Resurrection of a New Man. Okay. That is just fabulous. How are you different now that this has occurred? How are you different?
My thought process has totally changed because before I wrote this book, you know, like the passage I just wrote, I just read said, you know, I was headed down to self-destruction. I was headed down a path of self-destruction. And even though I had got over the basketball situation, there were still things going on in my life that was leading me down a path of self-destruction. I was really turning into somebody that I was not proud of. You know, it was things happening to me. I was hanging out with the wrong people. I was starting to treat people bad and really the enemy was really taking control of me and who I didn't want to be. So, and I began to notice this. And as I noticed this and I looked in the mirror at myself, I was just disgusted with what I was looking at. I was disgusted in the person I had become. I was disgusted in the man that I did not want to be. I talked about other people I preach to other people, other little kids, about not becoming this certain person when I'm becoming this person that I'm preaching other people not to become. And I recognized that. And I said, you know what? I need to change. I need to really change. And I need to go back to what I learned when I was coming up as a child. You know, when you're coming up as a kid, you stay in church.
Right. There you go.
Your mom and dad force you to go to church. And, you know, you really sitting there really not knowing what's going on. You're just there because you're forced to be there. But in reality, I think we all have that spirit within us deep down inside, you know, that's burning inside of us to want to be better, to want to be more, to want to be a better version of ourselves. So I wanted to become a better version of myself. I needed to change. So in order for me to change, I had to transform my mind. You know, the Bible says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So I had to do a total mind transformation. I had to totally wipe out everything that was the old me and bury the old ways and bury my old thoughts. And so that's how the name, the title came up, because I was reborn and resurrected a new man, because I decided to bury my old thoughts and bury my old ways and bury my old conditions of the way I was thinking. So, and me being reborn and resurrected, I'm totally a new person with new thoughts. You know, the Bible says, make my ways like your ways, Lord. Make my thoughts like your thoughts. So now I look at myself as I'm striving to think like God thinks. I'm striving to act the way he wants us to act. And that's my everyday mission, is to be more and more like Jesus Christ, to be an imitator of Christ. That's my mission every single day, to constantly be improving, to constantly be evolving, to constantly become the man that he ultimately created me to be. So that's how, you know, the book came about. You know, I had to totally do a mind transformation and become a new person, become better than I've ever been before. And every day I wake up, I say, I want to be better than the person I was the day before, the day, you know, or last month or last year. I need to always keep striving to be better. And I think everybody needs to have that thought process. It's an intentional process, but you have to want to intentionally do it every single day. Like I just read, it's something you have to strive to do every single day. It's not like you know, how people go to church once a week on Sunday and think they're going to, you know, be changed and live the way they're supposed to live. No. You know, you might hear the word of God for that hour or 2 hours, whatever. And before you even walk out the church, whatever you've heard, it already left your mind, and you back to, you know, going to cuss somebody out and, you know, do whatever. But this right here is something you have to intensely focus on every single day. And you have to yearn for the change. You have to yearn to be better. You have to yearn to be a better version of yourself. So that's the way I live my life now. And that's why I say I'm reborn and resurrected a totally different person.
Yes, you know what? We are reborn basically based off of whatever we renew our minds with. If whatever we're reading, whatever we're listening to, the type of people that we're engaging, that is what's fueling our future.
Right.
And so that is certainly true. Listening to you, you remind me of the story of David. Yes, and it's often quoted that David, King David, is a man after God's own heart. But the reality is, David was not without troubles. If you read the Psalms, he's crying to God. He's expressing his deep love and affection for God, but he's also telling him about his troubles and his heartbreak and his struggles of the flesh, you know, that he constantly experienced. So, Kenyon, the reality is these thoughts and feelings sometimes really don't go away. Where are you with that?
They really don't go away, but you have to, like I said before, you have to intentionally want to drive them away. If you're not intentionally trying to focus and drive those negative thoughts and those desires of the flesh, if you're not intensely trying to drive them out of your mind, they're going to constantly be there. They're going to constantly haunt you every single moment that they can. You know, the devil comes to seek whom he can devour. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And he's going to constantly be riding your back, knowing that you're going to eventually give in to that temptation. You're going to eventually give in to, you know, your flesh. So if you're not really, like I said, really focused on putting all your energy, they say, what's the saying? Where energy goes, no, I'm sorry. Where focus goes, energy flows. So
Okay, yes.
whatever you put your energy into, whatever you put your focus into, that's where your energy is going to go. So it's about focusing constantly on God's word. If you're not constantly focusing on the word of God and allowing the word of God to get in you and transform you and transform your thoughts and renew your mind on an everyday basis, then that just gives the enemy room to come in and wreak havoc. It comes, he can come in at any moment and drive those thoughts out of your mind if you're not constantly reading the word and studying the word and staying in prayer and fellowshipping with other Christians and talking to people that are mentors, like Tony and other Christians and believers. So if you're not constantly trying to drive those negative thoughts out of your head, they're going to constantly be trying to get back in and haunt you and change your mind and get you back to the person that you used to be or the person that you're trying to get away from being. So it's one of those things you have to be consistent and persistent, because all it takes is a second, a millisecond for the devil to sneak in. That's it. But don't give him that second. That's all I can say. Don't give him that second.
So I know you're a big fan of like TD Jakes and Creflo Dollar and men of that nature. Are you doing a lot of reading? Are you listening online? How is it that you are repeatedly renewing your heart?
I mean, pretty much my daily routine is waking up. As soon as I wake up, as soon as I open my eyes, I go right into prayer. Right after my prayer, I go right into the Word of God. I start reading at least a few chapters. Then the thing about when you're reading the Bible, a lot of times you may not understand exactly what you're reading. So with me, I like to take verse by verse and dissect that verse. And I'll take that verse and I'll go research, okay, what is this verse really saying? And as you always constantly researching and dissecting the word, it continues to pour into you. You begin to understand what exactly it's trying to tell you and exactly how you should think, how you should live, how you should treat people, how you should love each other, and that's part of my routine. Right after that, I'll start listening. Like you said, I'll listen to some sermons from TD Jakes or Joel Osteen or Joyce Meyer or Creflo Dollar, or I even listen to motivational speeches from Les Brown or Eric Thomas or Lisa Nichols. So I'm constantly filling my mind and my thoughts with those words that are uplifting and empowering and inspiring and motivating. So like I said, I don't give the enemy no chance to kind of sneak in my mind and erase everything that I just learned. So that's why I'm always constantly trying to learn and grow. I'm always listening, I'm always reading, and I'm always praying. I'm always talking to other believers. Some good friends of mine who are pastors and ministers, I'll call them and get some advice and suggestions to them, and they'll tell me things to do, to keep enhancing my willingness to learn and get better. So it's a constant process. It's a constant, consistent process.
That is remarkable. Remarkable. Family, you are watching Epic Understanding with a deep dive with Kenyon Glover. And so where I want to go now is, in the past, in your NBA career, you were a big trash talker. Yeah, you were big on talking trash. Is that is that still part of you? Are you still a trash talker?
No, not really. That was the very competitive nature of me back then. I mean, not to say I'm not competitive now, but of course I have a different avenue of what I do now. But yeah, I was a very competitive dude. Yeah, I wasn't a big trash talker. I would pretty much let my game do all the talking, but I would trash talk people back if they trash talk me first. I wouldn't start the trash talking.
Wait a minute, you didn't start the trash talking, but you participated.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to just trash talk me and me not say nothing back. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, I mean, you want to get into a trash talking game, we can talk all day. That's the competitive nature in me. So, I mean, now I don't really see myself as a trash talker. Not really. I mean, unless somebody comes to trash talk me about whatever the case may be. But of course, I'm going to retaliate. That's just part of me. But yeah, it's diminished a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just
what I'm getting at is, sometimes people think when you develop this spiritual quotient and your spiritual IQ begins to raise, that you lose something, that you lose that edge. But I don't see that in you, Kenyon. I don't think you've lost the edge at all. I think you're more powerful.
Exactly. That's the same way I would put it. I think my trash talking has changed from, being verbally abusive trash talker to a mentally stimulating trash talker. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So by that I mean I want people to grow. I want people to evolve. So I will come to you talking trash, saying, "Look, this is not the life you want to live. I mean, if you want to continue to be down in the valley of darkness, that's your choice. But you don't have to state it." You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of trash talk I do now. It's
Okay.
more mentally stimulating. I'm trying to get you to grow. I'm trying to get you to evolve and come out of that mediocre mindset, because I think we all were created to be great. I don't think none of us was created to be just average or mediocre. But
Mhm.
some people will settle for just being average. Some people are complacent and comfortable where they are. Some people want to be great, like myself, like Tony, like yourself, and Marco. I'm sure we all want to be great.
Yes.
In some way, form, or fashion, we want to be great. So I'm going to inspire you as much as I can and empower you as much as I can. So that's the kind of trash talking I see myself doing now.
Okay, I love it. I love it. So you have a lot of projects that you are working on. A lot of focus has been on your book, but you really do lead in the business area. You have films that you are making as well that you are acting in. How have you? No, better yet, what would your team say about you? Who would they say you are?
Wow. They would probably say this is the most determined person they've ever seen in their life. They would say I'm very determined. I'm very focused. I'm very dedicated. I'm very hungry. I'm very intense because I'm not playing about this. I truly want to be something great. I truly want to help change the world. I truly want to help empower and inspire millions of people around the world. I want people to remember my legacy as someone that tried to help change the minds of everyone that he came in contact with in a good way, in a positive way. I tried to be as uplifting as I possibly can. And they will say, hopefully they will say that about me. Hopefully it will never be anything negative, except if they basing that on the past me and not the new me, the resurrected and reborn Kenyon Glover. So now I would hope that everything that people say about me would be positive and uplifting.
Okay. And if you met someone who was thinking about suicide like you they were just convinced that was the right way to go, what would you say to them?
Um, Suicide won't really solve anything. God has a purpose for you. If you're still here, if you're still breathing right now, if you're still able to walk and talk and hear, taste, smell, whatever, God still has a purpose for you being here. If you didn't have a reason to be here, then you would already have been left. Just like me, when I tried to commit suicide and put a gun to my head and the gun jammed twice, obviously God showed that I have a higher purpose. So
Mhm.
if you're still here, if you're still breathing, that means God is not done with you yet. Let God work in you. Let God be the head of your life. It's not over. Your life is not over. You still have a chance. You still have an opportunity to achieve and accomplish your dreams or whatever you want to be in life. Your life is not over. You're still here. So God is not done with you yet. You need to keep striving for greatness. You need to trust in God and believe that He has a higher purpose for you, that there is a calling on your life. So don't please erase the suicidal thoughts. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. It wasn't easy for me, but it's an intentional focus. It's an intentional discipline that you have to get to ultimately, start erasing those suicidal thoughts out of your head.
Mhm. So people were close to you, right? people were close to you and they knew that you had gone through these things, and you had mentors. Matter of fact, you had a whole financial team, right? And you had friends and family and people who really cared about you in your life. So you had everything necessary, and a team around you, but yet no one was able to really come alongside you and recognize that you were having this heart pain, this deep spiritual pain. What were some of the signs that, now looking back, that people missed? How can we know that someone really needs our attention?
Well, the thing about me is I didn't let nobody know. I didn't let nobody in. Like, I didn't tell nobody about my career-ending injury. I didn't tell nobody about it. I kept it all to myself. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell anybody. I isolated myself. I was literally cutting my phone off so nobody could call me.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody could text me. I was not able to read any text messages or get any phone calls. So I completely isolated myself from the world and didn't want to be bothered, and locked myself into my house and sat there in the dark pretty much every single day. So it was different for me in that aspect. But, you know, if someone is trying to notice maybe someone that is suffering from depression or going through anxiety or whatever the case may be, it's one of those things where you don't want to pressure them, but you do want to kind of ask questions to make sure that, they're okay, and kind of, ask them if there's anything you want to talk about, or, there will be signs that you would notice if they're always sad, if they're always crying for no reason, or if they're always, want to be alone and want to be isolated. There are plenty of signs that you will see if someone is going through depression or anxiety or sadness or whatever the case is. So it's a very sensitive thing when it comes to mental health and depression and things like that. I take that very lightly because I take it very seriously because I talk to so many people on a daily basis that call me and want me to talk to, their son or their daughter or their brother or their uncle or whatever who's going through depression or have said they want to commit suicide. So I have to get on the phone with them and console them and comfort them and, try to figure out what's going on with them and why they seem to be feeling this way and what are the thoughts that's going on through their head. Just to try to get them to talk. And once you get them to talk, and if you're coming from a place that they can relate to, because you pretty much relate to them, because I can just talk about my journey and they're like, wow, dude, you went through that. So them hearing my journey and how I overcame it, it always tends to make them feel better and become, more, I guess, excited about life, and gives them opportunity to continue to believe in themselves and believe that, they have a purpose for living. They still have a purpose on why they're still here or whatever. So it's one of those things that it needs to be taken very serious, because I noticed that it's gotten pushed under the rug because of the pandemic that's taken over and, people losing their lives as far as that goes. But depression and suicide is still rising at a high rate right now. It's going through the roof. So, I try to not overextend myself, but I'm always trying to help as many people as I can, to make it through.
I really appreciate that. I asked that question for the audience, but really also for myself. I had a brother, and we weren't raised together. He was my father's son prior to my mother and my father getting together. So we weren't raised together, but I started to get to know him as an adult, and he was so funny. He was witty, and he had a great business mind, and just really full of life. So many friends, just people just naturally attracted to him. And about 5 years into our relationship, he committed suicide, and I I just could not understand why. He had everything. He had a family who loved him. He was financially secure. He had, all the bells and whistles that he could desire. And without warning, he committed suicide. And I was perplexed. I thought surely that, someone else, shot him. I never would have thought that he would have died at his own hand. And someone full of so much joy. So it is good to check in on our people. It's good to be close to people. If I think back, the only thing that I could compare his journey to yours was maybe he had not talked to a lot of people in a couple of days. It had been maybe about 2 days. And your story has isolation in it. How long were you isolated?
Until I tried to commit suicide, until I, put the gun in my head and tried to pull the trigger and survive that. Well, God saved me from that. And probably, like I said, it was about 2 weeks until I tried to do that. Then right after I did that, I probably came out around a couple of days later, where I started to, reach out to people and bring people around me and, really get out and mix and mingle with people. So it took a while, but that's the scariest thing about depression and suicidal thoughts is people can hide it well. People can mask it so well. You see them smiling and laughing and joking and doing all these different things. You think they're just happy and enjoying life, but in their mind, they're going through torture. They're tortured internally, and they're able to mask it with a happy face. But when gunfire is going off in their head and you just don't know, you can't tell, it's hard to really spot those people out who are really going through it. Sometimes you can see it in their eyes or in their face, but for the most part, it's hard to kind of tell people who are going through it when they're trying to mask it, with a smile and laugh and things like that. So those are the most scariest things right there that I know about depression and mental health is you just never know what somebody is going through and how good they're able to hide it.
So what I'm able to conclude just by what you're saying is, for ourselves, we have to have that self-awareness. That desire to isolate really is a bedrock of trouble.
Yeah.
We have to fight that desire within ourselves, to isolate instead of, going in our little cocoon, right?
Right.
We might want to reach out to someone for help. Someone to talk to.
Yes, absolutely. I would absolutely agree with that. Yeah, isolation is the last thing, the last no, I would take it off the table. Don't isolate yourself at all. When you're going through it, when you're suffering from depression or mental health or anxiety or whatever it is, please don't isolate yourself. That's the mistake I made. You need people around you. You need to talk to somebody. You need to vent to somebody. You need to let those emotions out, release those emotions. And sometimes having feedback can be very helpful. Having feedback from somebody else, that you're close with, that you love or whatever. It's good to have somebody around you or somebody to talk to. So please never isolate yourself. Don't do that. That's the mistake I made.
Wow, you have given it to us today, Kenyon Glover, the rebirth and resurrection of a new man. You are certainly yes, you are certainly a new man. You know what? There have been, so many parts of this interview that I have enjoyed. I'm definitely going to rewatch it myself. Tony, what words do you have to say to your friend?
The first thing I want to say, I am extremely proud of you on so many levels. Just watching your growth over the years, just being able to share in your journey and seeing you here is just so phenomenal. I have this saying, it's we all have this saying: check on your strong friends. And brother, you are powerful. You're more powerful than I've seen in a very long time. So continue to put that positivity out there in the world. And to the audience, one thing I want to say, always remember to get your checkup from the neck up. So your mental health matters. So those are my closing words.
Awesome. Marco?
Yes, that's me.
Yes.
Well,
What wisdom do you have to share with us?
Well, it was a very insightful conversation. I think it's because I somehow I was a sports guy also, and we know when well, here we are. It's all about soccer,
Yes, yes, yes.
and we know how many passion we put in this sportive career. It's I think when people say, "Oh, sports people they make too much money." Okay, maybe some, but people don't figure how many sacrifices they make to because it's not one of the problems is not just because you are skilled about basketball or football or soccer, whatever. It takes much more than just skill. It takes discipline. It takes hard work and everything. And we know. I was when I was listening to Kenyon, I was feeling that disappointment because how much illusion you put on this dream, how much effort, work, discipline. Because when you for instance, I'm 43. I think I'm still not in the top of my capabilities on my work. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're a sport people a basketball player or whatever, you know that uh, time it's very short at
Mm-hmm.
for instance at 40, 35, at 40 you're done. It's over. So you have the best days of your youth, of your younger. It's playing, it's sleeping, it's not going to parties with friends. It's not because you can't. So I see and it was NBA. It was not the a small deal. It was a huge deal, and if giving up of it should be very painful. So, and overcome this, it's amazing. So thank you for sharing with us, Kenyon. It was a very insightful and inspirational conversation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
My pleasure. Tell us what are your parting words, Kenyon?
Um, I just want to let everybody know, just to continue to be positive. You know, on this journey of life, you're going to go through trials and tribulations and struggles and adversities. But just look at those trials and tribulations and challenges and adversities as preparation for you to get to the ultimate success in what you're trying to get to. You know, we all have to go through peaks and valleys. That's part of the training of life. That's part of the training to grow and mature and evolve. You know, God wants us to get to the point where we are focused on Him and Him only. So don't look at the things you go through as a bad thing. You know, that is just preparing you and setting you up, you know, for the ultimate dream that you're trying to accomplish.
That is perfect. This has been a very powerful episode of Epic Understanding. We've covered spiritual intelligence with Kenyon Glover. It has been fantastic. Marco, thank you once again for having us on the
Can
Marco.
you spell my surname today
Well, I
properly?
can't. Thank you so much for having us on the Marco Novo Network. It has been
Yes.
it has been a pleasure. And no, I cannot spell your small town. I'm not sure if I can say it, but I am confident that Kenyon is going to perfect that move. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. All right, guys. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye,
Thank
family. Thank you for joining us. Bye bye.
you.